Welcome, Chicago Bears fans. Welcome to the Bears Den podcast number 46. I am your host, Andy, and we have a great show lined up for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about free agency, and some more free agency. If you're watching us, please show us some love. Tell all your family and friends to follow us, like us, subscribe to us on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Now, let me bring out the stars of the show, the guys you pay to see, the rock star Todd and the megastar, the bad guy, Chicago Clarence. So, guys, free agency is here. We happy, sad, excited, nervous. When we made some moves, there's still moves to be made, obviously. I mean, nobody's done. It's just a lull. Now we like getting into the second wave when the contracts are a little cheaper. Todd, what's your thinking of what happened yesterday? I mean, nothing happened today, but what about yesterday? What's your thinking?
I was a little apprehensive. It took about 20, 30 minutes before it actually went down. Yeah. So that was good. You know, I know the last several years on this thing, you get 2 or 3 guys in mind, like, oh, this is going to make sense. And then, and then we sign a running back, right. Or we sign Larry Ogunjobi, right. It's like,
he's a free agent now.
No, I know he is, and a local guy. But
I always root for Charlotte 49er guys.
Sure. But this time we had the guys in mind, and those are the guys we went and got. So I mean, the Deo thing was a little bit of a surprise, but it makes sense. And Grady Jarrett and all that. But really, Dahlman was what was everybody was looking for, especially after what had happened earlier in the week, happened last week. So it's exciting when you're on the same page as your GM.
So real quick, Larry Ogunjobi story. As many of you know, I've worked for the Charlotte 49ers part-time, doing security and game day events. And the spring game, he came to for that short amount of time. He was a Chicago Bear until he failed his physical. But he came to the spring game, and he was officially or unofficially a Chicago Bear. I just yelled to him, "Bear down!" And he put his fist up, and he goes, "Bear down!" So that's my Larry Ogunjobi story. I met him one time for a second. So Chicago Clarence, what did you think of yesterday?
Well, this is the first time I can say that we were aggressive with purpose. We had a plan. We stuck to the plan. We executed. And it started really the week before free agency because we started making trades. Never have I seen this team operate on a plan. I've got a real good friend that always tells me that you need to go through life with a game plan. She lives her life every single day with a game plan. From the time her feet hits the floor, she's got a game plan of what she wants to get accomplished that day on to the time that she goes back to bed that night. So this is what the Chicago Bears did. They had a game plan, they mapped it out, and they executed it almost to perfection. Particularly the one where we got the lineman from Atlanta. He got released that morning, and by that afternoon, he was in Chicago, and he was a Chicago Bear. And it seems from what I'm hearing, reports were that they were talking to his representatives at the combine about, his representatives were saying that there was a chance that he was going to get released, and they were weighing their options. So we all know that tampering happens in the NFL, especially at the combine. So there was definitely some discussions to be made because the Bears jumped on him quickly.
Yes. So let's rewind a little bit because we did not get to comment on this move right here. We got to comment on Jonah Jackson. That happened Tuesday. Wednesday morning, we woke up and Joe Thuney became a Chicago Bear for a 4th-round pick next year. Todd, what are your thoughts on that move?
I think being in the cap position that we were, when things like this pop up, when because we had gone, for months on this Trey Smith kick, and we didn't think they were gonna tag him, and I guess came down to the end, and they decided, they weighed their options and decided they needed to go young, and I didn't necessarily, it didn't pop him. Honestly, with based on what they did last year when they tagged was a defensive back, and then they turned around and dealt him. I thought, well, maybe this is the move just to secure some capital for for the player. I wasn't thinking, well, we can keep one and we're going to keep the younger guy, even though the older guy's been been a rock
Right.
star and just and an Iron Man who just shows up every week. But you've got to make those decisions. Unless you're I don't know. I guess unless you're the Saints or somebody where the cap doesn't apply to you.
Cap hell.
I don't
Cap
understand.
hell.
But anyway, but they they in the real world where we pay attention to the cap, they had to make a decision and being cap sound, we were able to jump on that, and so that's a whether this is a 2 or 3 year deal or depending on how much of an Iron Man he can be. I mean, obviously, listen to a lot of shows out of Chicago where they're having people on from Kansas City saying, hey, this isn't just your best offensive lineman. This may be the best player on your roster. If he's still got anything in the tank that resembles that, then, good on the organization being able to jump and do that.
Right. I mean, I love the move. I thought we got a captain already. We got the best. I mean, we have the best player on our offensive line already. We got a captain. We got a leader. Chicago Clarence, what did you think of this move? And there's his resume. I mean, that right there, that's a resume. And I challenge you to find another guy with a resume like that, not named Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's Super Bowl, wild card. They missed the playoffs, conference championship, Super Bowl. I would take that. Chicago Clarence, what do you think of the Joe Thuney move that happened Wednesday?
Well, you got his resume up, and as impressive as that is, I like his stats a lot better. Like how many times did he allow his quarterback to get hit?
Right.
How many times, what penalties did he have and stuff
I think,
like that? We have issues with that and his availability to play games.
Right. I think he had one flag all of last year.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's
we don't know what that looks like with
idea.
our line. So to have a guy in there that plays, and when he plays, he's very, very effective. And also the book on him is that he's non-tolerant of bullshit in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professional. He's a leader. He should very well be a captain. This is the type of player that we need.
Have to see right here.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the stuff that was coming out of the locker room and reports that was going on with this team, albeit we as fans was feeling a lot of it with the dysfunction that we were feeling from the coaching staff. But at the same time, players got to be players, and while you're playing, you got to be professional. We didn't have a lot of that around there. So a guy like that is going to mix in our locker room and be, I think, an instant leader, which is something we desperately need.
Right.
So what's up, Walker from C&J Podcast? Thank you for joining us. And your show kicks ass. We love being a guest on your show and vice versa. And Arthur Williams said, big moves yesterday. Yes, we did make big moves. So our next up after Thuney, we signed a little-known tight end. I was familiar with him, Durham Smythe. I mean, he's more of a blocking tight end. He pretty much will replace Mercedes Lewis. So I think we still need another tight end on the roster, but we signed him. I think what was that, Thursday morning maybe, Friday morning?
Right.
Any of you guys want to add to the signing of Durham Smythe before we get into the main event of our show?
No, I think it was just what you said, a deft move. He may even find himself on special teams as well. So a lot of things that he can do with this. But Ben Johnson likes to run a lot of two tight end sets as well.
Right. He had him in Miami for at least a season, I think. So when Johnson was there, I guess prior to the Lions, if I remember hearing that right. So, so he knows the player.
So on to bigger and better things. So yesterday morning, all hell broke loose. Free agency started. Legal tampering, as the NFL calls it. And our first signing out the gate was Drew Dahlman, a center we badly needed. I would say our first all-pro center since, I would say, Olin Kreutz. Some people might say Garza. A lot of people liked him, but we finally have an all-pro center. Todd, thoughts on the Drew Dahlman signing yesterday?
Yeah, everybody had built it up, so I'm glad that it actually happened. There wasn't much other than Dahlman. I honestly think if it had come to that probably we would re-up from last year and Shelton, yeah. And I wasn't. If we were going to spend that money somewhere else, if you could justify it, I guess that would have been fine. But this was going to be if this didn't happen, that was going to be a big mistake. So this at least was a relief, I think, and the money was reasonable. So that's I think ideally they wanted him at 13, and this works out to 14, and that's compared to what some of these other guys are getting, that's certainly respectable.
Yeah, I mean, the money was right on. I mean, PFF and Spotracs predicted he would $14-15 million. It was right dead on. So, Chicago, Clarence, what are your thoughts on the Drew Dalman signing yesterday? Like it, dislike it?
Well, I love the move
Right.
because he is a big time upgrade on what we had. I think you can look at every position on our offensive line and say we really tremendously upgraded from what we have been rocking with the past few years. I mean, overall, we needed a guy that can be a signal caller, and this guy makes the line calls. So that's what we needed. I mean, that was something that Shelton wasn't really all that good at last year. We know that. It was he was being criticized for what was happening there. So we got him at $14 million too. We didn't have to really overpay him. He came out at the right time. He's going to get paid. All kudos for that. But for me, we have been discussing this ad nauseum, not necessarily on our show, but on other shows. I mean, I'm just ready to win.
Yes.
This just needs to, all of the moves that's being made has to translate to wins on the football field. I mean, I love watching football with you guys. I look forward to it every week, but I am sick and damn tired of walking out of bars pissed off because we don't lost the game, because how we don't lost the game, and all the shit that happened in between. I am tired of it. It is time that we start operating like a big boy professional football franchise. Plain and simple. And this is the first time for my time that I've actually seen us do it. Now, we got the joke talking about being 3-time offseason champions. That's all well and good. But this is the first time. This is the first time, like I said at the beginning of the show, that we have operated with a purpose. We had a game plan. We stuck to the game plan. And you can see Ben Johnson's influence in the decisions that was being made. And I liken to the time where we seen Ryan Poles at the time where they went up there and announced that Eberflus had been let go. He looked dejected. He looked defeated. And he looked like somebody that wasn't in charge. I don't give a damn what's happening behind the scenes. I want shit to start working the way it's supposed to. It's looking that way. It's really looking that way.
So go ahead. Alan Kennedy, who joins us quite a bit on CNG podcast, said lots of coin. Yeah. I mean, to me, Dalman got what was predicted. Like he got what the market was calling for, and there were reports that he took less because he wanted to come to Chicago and play with Ben Johnson and play with Caleb Williams. I have no clue if that's true or not, but there are reports out there he took less money to come to Chi-Town.
He probably did.
Yeah, Mike Florio reported it this morning on 670 The Score that he did take less money to come to Chicago.
So Alan Kennedy said he is a legacy player. His dad played for the 49ers. Yeah, I remember that last name. I remember the last name of the 49ers, but if Alan's saying it, it's got to be true. I would have to look it up quick, but if he's saying it, it's got to be true. So let's move on to the second signing of yesterday morning. Dayo. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I'm not even going to because I'm just going to look like an idiot more than I normally do.
Right.
This one caught me off guard because I had to look this kid up.
Right.
I saw his name on the free agency list, but I definitely had to look him up and do a little homework. So, Todd, what are your thoughts on Dayo?
I think it's still a little bit of a ceiling player. I think what he's hang on, let me pull up here and take a look at he was 2021 draft 54th overall. The size wise, he fits what we want to do on as a true defensive end at 6'6", 276. I mean, that's fantastic. Yes. He has over the cap valuation of a little over $8 million, which from last year, which is pretty solid overall. I think he's been what I've seen him described as a steady improver over 4 years. So maybe it's a breakout move on a better overall defense. I mean, the Colts defensive line's got some talent, but you know, it's the Colts, you know. So, but
Yes.
I think I still feel like, and we usually relate these ones and twos and threes to wide receivers
Right.
and things like that. But if you want to do edge rushers, you know, I think that Montez is probably a high 2, and the Steo may also be a high 2. Like, but I don't know how many number 1 true edges there are out there. You know, Garrett Miles or you know.
Well,
There's
Miles,
just a handful of guys, right? You know,
yeah.
And those are the guys that are cashing in at 35 million per this year. So you know, 4 or 5 guys. So I get T.J. Watt, something like that, right? Max Crosby.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's only 4 or 5, 6 guys, then maybe you don't. I started hearing that a little bit over the last few days. You know, a number 1 end, a number 1 edge. You know, and also those guys come in a lot of different flavors. You know, a lot of teams like the 250-pound guys. We've never been that team, and with Dennis Allen, it seems like we're the 285-pound guys, 280. So it's a different thing. So
reports are that Dennis Allen likes his defensive ends bigger. Because he likes to rotate them inside, sneak them inside. And Arthur Williams, our boy Arthur Williams from TikTok, and thank you for joining me, said, I think he would be a great piece under Dennis Allen.
Right. It seems like a good fit. It seems like a better fit than we were trying to shove Chase Young into that role for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But, you know, it's like at his size, he should be able to set the edge. But this guy's coming in 20 pounds heavier. Maybe he can actually set the edge, and that's going to make him an every down player, not just the designated pass rusher type of guy. Yeah.
So, Clarence, what are your thoughts on Dale? Alan Kennedy said he is huge. Yes, he's listed as 6'6", 290. So, yeah, he's a bigger defensive end for sure.
We needed somebody else to get on that line and give Sweat some help. The next guy that you're going to bring up is going to do that as well, because we're going to be able to generate pressure from the 3 technique position. And that's something we ain't been able to do in a very, very long time. And now you're going to be able to generate pressure on both edges, which is something that we need. And Tyler's right. We don't have a Batman on this defense. We got a whole bunch of Robins.
Right.
And what we need, because our strong suit is our secondary in this defense, we got to be able to speed the quarterback's clock up. And what I mean is make him throw the ball before he's ready to throw the ball. That tends to lead to turnovers. So this guy has generated pressure. I think they said 3 years, 42 quarterback pressures is what this guy does. You know, anybody that he's replaced wasn't able to generate that kind of pressure. So all we need is just somebody to hold that line up and, like I said, speed the quarterback's clock up and let our secondary eat. Because we got a very good secondary. You know, Tyreek Stevens, when his head is screwed on straight, and I think that Dennis Allen is not going to play them games that he liked to play last year. He's going to have to produce, and he's going to have to produce at a high level. Johnson on the other side. Then when you add our safeties in there, we got a very good secondary. So
yes, we do.
If we can shore up this defensive line, which is what they were attempting to do, now I'm with Todd. We still got to make some adjustments. We're not done. We got to be responsible.
No, we're not done.
And I'm pretty sure that we're going to bring this up later on the show, so I'm not going to allude to it. But we got to be responsible. We got to be responsible when the draft comes and do what's right for the football team, which means we still got to add more. The dish is not done. We need more ingredients, bro. We need a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper in the pot.
And this didn't feel like an overpay either. Like, you know, I mean, some of the Milton Williams, that felt like a big overpay to me. And even, you know, and even some of the veteran guys, Minnesota signed Allen. And that seemed like an overpay to me at his age. And they signed
Matt getting $18 million.
Yeah, well, that was close. But again, that's, you know, he's different, but still, I'd like to be, you know, a little heavier than he is. You know, to me, he's still a 3-4 outside linebacker. I mean, I know he's older now, played in there, but still, he looks more like that player than this guy's going to. So it didn't feel like an overpay at 16, and you know, whatever it works out to be, but 16 annual average. So I was pretty happy with that.
So Deo, I did a little research on him. What Dennis Allen likes to do is he likes to rotate guys inside and outside. And
Right.
Dale has the body type. You can sneak him into defensive tackle on
Right.
pass rushing downs. And he's already talking about sneaking Dexter to the edge sometimes, which would be interesting. And he can sneak Sweat inside. He likes interchangeable pieces. I mean, we did not sign this guy because he's a scrub. I mean, they see something in this kid to give him that kind of money very quickly yesterday morning. I mean, I know fantasy football wise, 3 sacks but you look at the 42 pressures, he's interchangeable.
Right.
He's the type of guy that Dennis Allen wants. Interchangeable. So then yesterday morning, when I saw this, that Grady Allen got cut, I texted both of you. I said, oh shit. They're gonna save money and they're gonna go after Dahlman.
Right.
I did not even think for 1 second that Grady Jarrett was going to be a Chicago Bear. Never crossed my mind. I thought Atlanta cut him to go save Dahlman. So, Todd, what did you think when we signed Grady Jarrett? That was
Jarrett's-
shocking to me.
Yeah, he, obviously a veteran and a little past his prime, but he's going to be a presence in the locker room. I think, like we were talking about Dexter, I think he should be a good influence on him. And I don't know if we're giving up on the Pickens situation, but you can take a couple guys under your wing. And I think he's probably going to be like, I know when they're talking about Mac, he was talking about being a part-time player. And I think that Jarrett probably is going to be that to a certain degree too, but he's kind of always carried himself, as a guy who talks, but who also, backs it up. I know that, it's a little past his prime, but it essentially works out as a 2-year deal, and
Right.
We certainly could use a presence like that. So
he was a Walter Payton of the Man year. I think he was up for the award. I think he may have won it, but anyway, he's described as a great locker room presence, which is something we have been sorely lacking. Because Chicago Clarence has brought this up before. We did not draft Jalen Carter a few years ago because we had no locker room leadership.
right.
And it probably would have been a train wreck in hindsight after what we've been through last year. But Grady Jarrett, what are your thoughts on Grady Jarrett, bad guy?
I was very excited because this guy is exactly what we needed on that defensive line. Todd said it about in the locker room. I'm gonna get to that in a moment. But we needed somebody to disrupt stuff in the middle of the, on that line, and that's what he was. We was not getting that out of Dexter. We was not getting that out of Pickens. We need somebody to play that three tech position and get to the quarterback or generate pressure or stop the run. When your defensive line is not holding up, and then your offensive, the opposing team's offensive line is able to get to the second level, and then they get down on your linebackers. Guess what happens? You get the ball ran down your throat. How many times do we see the Chicago Bears that happen to them? When you able to generate pressure, when you able to eat up blocks, and you allow your linebackers to cook, that's how you stop the run. And this guy is going to help us do that. Yes, I know he's a little long on the tooth, but nothing motivates you more than to show somebody who no longer wants you that you were still worth having around. That's what this guy said. He thanked Atlanta for the opportunity. He thanked that's where he played his whole career at. But he said he still has some stuff left in the tank, and he's going to show them better than he can tell them. I love that. Todd said something about him being a presence in the locker room. As we all know, that's exactly what this football team needs. You can never have too many leaders. Never.
Yes. Arthur Williams, Chicago Clarence is big on that. We must stop the run next year. Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, this defense really fell off. I thought when Billings went down, he was our main run stopper. Getting him back is huge. Getting him back is a must. But yeah, we got gashed on bad last year against the run. Like, it really surprised me how bad it got. So, guys, right there is the offensive line. I think it's safe to say that's a lot better. I would argue it's the best it's been in many
Since the
years.
Super Bowl year.
Yeah. So, Todd, if you had to say what's the weakness on this offensive line, if you had to, I know who everybody's going to pick, but who do you point to as the weakness on this line right now? I mean, I know Chicago Clarence is going to pick.
Yeah, obviously, and I think the injury factor is a big part of it. I mean, the bull rush and Braxton
Yeah.
is an ongoing theme here. I'm a little concerned with the just off of last year with Jonah Jackson on the injury situation. We just had to kind of trust that with the coach. But I mean, I'm looking at that now and I'm thinking, okay, our best offensive lineman by a mile was Darnell last year, and maybe he's third now on this lineup. So, so that's a great thing. Yeah, I still think depending on what happens uh, we have to bring in competition for Braxton for sure. And if that's at 10,
Yes.
I'm good with that. If that's at 39, I'm still okay with that. I think that what we need to do, I mean, there's a couple guys still on this free agency list, but not really interested in that.
No.
We need to bring in some young guys, develop and create competition there, and then have somebody we can rely on coming off the bench. And if Braxton's coming as a swing tackle, we've said that for a while
Yes.
that we're excited about that or happy about that. I don't want to pay Braxton a lot of money. I'm okay with paying him swing tackle money, and I don't know, is that 10, 11, something like that. Okay, I don't want to pay him 20, and that's what a starting left tackle is going to want. And so I think ideally we can develop unknown late round tackle or Amagaji, and we can draft his replacement early this year and maybe even deal him before the year's over to avoid the whole free agency money thing and all that. I mean, that would be ideal.
I don't know if I would deal him.
I don't know if that's,
I don't know if I would deal Brian. I think he's the weak link, but I don't know if I
would have to feel confident in either Amagaji as a developmental after this year or a later round developmental draft pick this year. But I think we go after his replacement early in this draft.
Chicago Clarence, I already know you're going to say Braxton Jones. So what would we need depth for sure, because right now our swing tackle, our first tackle off the bench is going to be Amagaji. Mm-hmm. And based on what we saw last year, that's not going to get it done. And truthfully, the offensive line still needs work. Bill Murray is on our bench and Ryan Bates. That's it. That is our bench for the offensive line.
Well, one of the keys to this football team, and I say it all the time, is coaching. Right. Our offensive line, for my money, has never been properly coached. I mean, we're talking about basic fundamentals here. Mm-hmm. Getting your pads lower, anchoring down with your butt in the air instead of down. I mean, those are just fundamental things that you're supposed to do when you're on the line, and they ain't never been properly coached. So maybe that there is some hope for Amagaji. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe there are some things that we can do differently with some of the pieces that we have, because I like what I saw out of Pryor. Right. So you bring in somebody that come in that knows what they're doing. Ben Johnson and his staff, the way he put it together and getting people in there to coach these guys up, because let's face it, there's work that he's got to do with Caleb Williams as well, because all of those 68 sacks was not on the offensive line. A lot of that was on him too, holding the ball too damn long. Yeah. But you can only be so critical, because when people are knocking your block off, there's a wonder why you ain't going through your progressions when it's 1/1000, boom, you're getting hit. You know what I'm saying? So you would think his ass want to get rid of the ball, at least get out of there. But that's for another show. Braxton Jones is definitely the weak link of this team, and it ain't even close. I mean, he's not a starting left tackle for my money. He's just not. And like Todd said, Jackson worries me because of his injury history. So we have got to develop depth. We got to draft depth. And usually when people start to make their cuts, we can add a piece here, a piece there. We're going to have several players that are going to be on 1-year deals. I mean, we have done this for a few years now. Yeah. Use a stopgap, because we can't fix everything at the same time. It's got to be, a process. And it's been high time that we have started the process with this offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, this Amagaji thing for a minute, I mean, people just hate on a guy because they see him for,
A game.
a
We saw
half,
he
or
played
not even
one
a whole,
game.
a half,
He's
or
yeah.
they'll see the Harper Stevenson will be forever be terrible because he had one really, really bad game. But, that kid, he probably was drafted a little high. But it was
Yes.
strictly a tool situation. He's
And
coming
that
off of an
kid,
injury and he's playing for Yale. He's not used to this
yeah.
competition. So he just has a body type and an ability that graded out that said, if you pick this kid in the third or fourth round, maybe you'll have something down the road. He had no business seeing the field last year.
Isn't that the same game where we thought Nate Davis was going to go? And
Yeah,
then
that
at
was
the
always a
last
mystery.
second,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I got a leg injury. I can't go. So
Yeah,
we
but
had to put that kid on the field.
both of those things are coaching situations. If you can't control Davis, and if you're having to start Amagaji, who probably should have spent the season on the practice squad,
Yeah.
just don't even let him near the field. You spent a top 100 pick on him, and you rolled the dice, and maybe you'll have something still. But
Yeah.
They tried to motivate Davis. They tried to deal with him.
Yes.
The problem was, he knew he had his guaranteed money, and he milked it for everything he possibly could to get his money. And he just basically quit on the team. He was never interested in playing here, and that's very unfortunate. But Ryan Poles should have read the writing on the wall. You got to do your due diligence. You got to do your homework because the book was out. People would have told you
Yes.
if you'd have been willing to listen how this
Vrabel,
guy went about his business.
Vrabel
You
spoke
didn't
up.
listen.
Yeah. Vrabel spoke up. He said he was a no-go. He didn't want to play. He didn't want to practice. He didn't want to. If he had a nick, any kind of nick or a little injury, he was a no-go.
What do we give him? 20 million?
I don't. I'd have to look
It
it
was
up.
a
Yeah,
320 guaranteed. So
Yeah,
20
we should
million.
file charges. We should absolutely file charges.
So let me ask you, Gavin, since we're talking about injured offensive linemen, we made the decision to go with Jonah Jackson over Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins did not get an offer these past 2 days. Todd, you surprised? Not surprised? Shocked? We were thinking he would get between 10 and 15 million because the kid has talent. He has talent, but no offer for Tevin.
Yeah, he's real talented at getting his ass hurt. That's the only talent I see.
I still think he can get 10, but it's going to be a 110. I mean, I can't imagine anybody's going to invest any. I mean,
no, everybody's going to get him a prove it.
Yeah, of course.
Prove it.
And
prove it.
He'll
1
end
year.
up somewhere. I mean, if he got less than 8, I'd be surprised. But there's teams out there that'll step up and do that and roll the dice with him because he's got talent. He was a high draft pick, and when he's a lot of injury, a lot of penalties too, not just the injury thing. But I mean, our whole team was that way. When they talk about, it was CSU that said that I think it was 4 penalties.
Yes.
For all of our new starting interior offensive linemen for the season last year. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you can get 4 in a game and wouldn't think twice about it.
We can cut down on pre-snap penalties alone.
Yeah,
that would save us a lot because we were behind the chains all season long. So Chicago Clarence, are you surprised Tevin Jenkins is still a free agent?
I am surprised that he's still a free agent because people get desperate. All these moving parts and people moving around, people somehow gets it in their mind that they need something that they really don't. And Tevin Jenkins at double digits is something that I thought that somebody would bite at. But at the same time, nothing hurts like the truth. You know what I mean? You put the work in, your body of work is on tape. People have seen you start games and not be able to finish them. The NFL teams are not interested in that, especially when you don't have your offensive line, other than your quarterback, is the most important position on a football team because you have got to able to protect the number 1 guy. You got to be able to sustain drives by running the ball. You got to move another human being out of your way against his will. That's what you get paid for. And if you're teams that are not good at it, don't win football games. We have seen that for a long time. So Tevin Jinx is just going to fall in that, I mean, listen, if Charles Leno can get another job,
Yeah,
and we know how terrible that dude was, Tevin Jinx will get a job somewhere.
Yeah, he played 4 seasons at
Washington
Washington. Yeah.
after he moved on from us. So let me guys ask you about another former player. Some people, this is still a heated discussion. I'm just going to say Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed, New York Jets. Todd, I mean, Justin Fields, I hope he succeeds, except against us. Because I thought he always left it on the field. He gave us everything he had. Coaching was shitty. Play calling was shitty. The offensive line was shitty. But Justin Fields, Todd, 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. What are your thoughts on that one?
I was happy for Justin, and they're starting fresh up there, defensive-minded coach.
Aaron
They have a decent offensive line. They've got a solid running back. They could use another receiver, but they've got a good receiver. I don't know how successful they'll be, but I was happy for him. He didn't wait to see what the Steelers were going to do, so that was maybe they let him know. But
yeah,
I didn't know. I thought there was a chance he might end up in Seattle, after their move. But yeah, he good for him. I mean, I hope he does well.
So Chicago, Clarence, you are wearing a JF1 jersey. What are your thoughts on Justin Fields heading to New York City, which is a much bigger media capital than Chicago?
Yeah.
I am definitely a Justin Fields fan. Plus, these jerseys ain't cheap. So I ain't gonna just put this shit in the closet because he don't play for the team no more. I'm gonna get the word out of this shit. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I love Justin Fields. I think that we did him a great disservice by not supplying him with proper coaching, not giving him an adequate. And I'm not talking about average. We didn't give him an adequate offensive line. We gave him a terrible play callers, and we just didn't give him a decent chance. No one has been able to tap into this guy's abilities, and I'm hoping that happens in New York. They seem to be revamping that team around, and I want him to get a fair shot because I think that anybody that knows how to coach offense would be able to get something out of him. I would have loved to have seen what Ben Johnson could have done with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't give him receivers. The Steelers really didn't. I mean, George Pickens, but I mean, he hasn't really had much as far as weapons anywhere he's gone. So I probably the Jets. Yeah, Garrett Wilson, depending on what they do this year. I think this is
Tony
probably the most talented. I hate skill position. I hate the term skill position, but this is probably the best skill position team he's been on.
But
now, he's got a leaky O line too.
He's also
the Jets they've been losing a ton of people.
He's also got a DC. He's also got a DC as a head coach, and his offensive coordinator. Me and Clarence looked it up yesterday. Neither of us have ever heard from him. Tanner Engstrand. He was the passing game coordinator for the Lions. He worked under Ben Johnson. So maybe Justin Fields will flourish, and maybe he won't.
Well, if he doesn't, I tell you what, he's got $30 million guaranteed money. He's going to be just fine.
Good for him.
So Todd, let's talk about the draft just a little bit. Number 10.
Number 10.
If you don't have to name a player,
I love to name players.
What position would you at number 10? What position? Just say a position. Would you focus on at number 10 after our free agency signings yesterday?
We talked a little, or we were texting a little yesterday. I'm thinking, who this draft. There's a handful of blue chip players, right? Maybe 5, right? That seems to be kind of the consensus. And at 10. The player that you're going to get, the player we're going to get at 39 is probably not going to look much different than the player we're going to get at 10. It's deep in that there's probably 100 plus, good players in this draft, but it's just not the superstars. And so ideally, I would like another bullet. I would like to go back from 10 to into the late teens, something like that. I think we're getting the same kind of player there, and I'd like to get at least another pick in there. But I know everybody's all they want to talk about is Genty, and Genty is one of the blue chip players.
Yes.
I think they want to do that. I really do. I don't think I would do it, but I think they want to do it. I would. The running back is a position we could draft a kid, and they would start. Could start over Swift, but I think that's the case at 41 and at 39. Yes. Also, I think we can draft a kid there that will beat out Swift. I think at 72 we could draft a kid that would beat out Swift. But I think they really like Genty. I would rather take a true left tackle to compete with Braxton Jones. That's what I would do. And I don't know if that's Josh Simmons. It might be. You could move back and get him a little bit too because he's coming off an injury. But the two tackles. Yeah, well, the one is not a tackle. Will Campbell's he's a guard, and we can't use him right now. He just sit on our bench. I honestly thought that we would leave one of these spots open, either the edge rusher or one of those interior spots, and draft to fill that. I thought we would save money that way, and we didn't. And so I'm pretty proud of them for that. So it truly is a BPA, and I think that they think that Genty's a BPA, but I don't know that he's there at 10. There's a lot of rumbling out of the Raiders that and it's gonna depend on Shedeur and how they really feel about him. But I think I would love to trade down in front of Seattle because I know that they're probably going to go offensive line and take the best real tackle there. What Seattle is 18, so 17 with the Bengals and move down 7 spots, and pick up another mid 50s pick. That would be ideally what I would like to do. If we don't do that, I think we stick and take the best defensive lineman we can take, whether that's a 3-tech, or whether that's an edge rusher, just as a depth piece. I think if they can find a true number 1 edge, then that would be great. But that's what I would do. I think there's probably a better than 50% chance that if Genty's on the board, that's probably what they do.
Oof. So Arthur Williams, do you think the Raiders will grab AJ? Let me ask you something first, Clarence. Just say we stay at 10. We do not draft a running back. We're not going to draft a running back at 10, just for argument's sake. Is anybody we draft at number 10 going to come in and start? Like, do you see another spot open on this team that a kid at number 10 could just come in and start right now? Not named a running back. Running back's off the board. I mean, wide receivers, I'm going with Adunze and DJ.
That's a really good question.
Is there a hole open for a starter?
It all depends on who fell to 10. I think, let's say for instance, I think that if Travis Hunter fell to 10, Travis Hunter can stop. he could start in Stevenson's spot. I mean, I really do think that.
Sure.
And then you can develop some packages for him to be that third slot receiver.
Yeah.
That's just for me. Somebody like him. If you went guard and Will Campbell came in, do you think that he could beat Jonah Jackson out? I mean, I don't know.
I would take him though.
I mean, I would probably take him.
Yeah, I would
because you're going to have Tooney for 2 years, maybe 3 tops. You're going to need another guard. I mean, all our people on our line, on our offensive line and defensive line, all those guys are over 30. We got to get younger at those positions.
Another angle for a potential starter, and there's talk in the top 10 range is the tight end out of Penn State is Tyler Warren. And if you're talking about a true 2 tight end set, then he would be a starter along with Cole. That's a possibility too.
If they drafted him at 10, it would not bother me. That guy is electric.
Yeah.
That's a straight up starter. If you're gonna play 12,
whoever gets him, he's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
The linebackers cannot stay with that guy. He is the kind of tight end that I wish we had that can outrun linebackers. I mean, Cole Kmet's a physical specimen, but the dude runs like he's got lard in his ass.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
he couldn't outrun. I mean, he's slow. He ain't physical. He don't run behind his pass, and he just doesn't play like he's hungry. And you guys
Yeah.
know how much I like that.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you at 10, don't we almost still have to take an offensive lineman because Tooney, Jackson, and Braxton Jones, regardless, right now they're all expiring at the end of this season. Whether we sign them to extensions or not, right now all three of those guys are free agents. So we're losing 3/5 of our offensive line next year. Don't we almost have to take an offensive lineman now and start grooming him?
I
at
mean,
10?
there's a lot of things we can do at 10. Like Todd was saying earlier, and we said this on Walker's show. We can trade back
Yeah.
and garner another pick.
right.
And we
Yeah.
can address two positions with one pick. And
Yeah.
that's really and truly what I want to do. But that tight end out of Penn State really, really excites me. I like him, and I
Yeah.
like him a lot. So this is a deep draft for linemen. We can get a lineman on day 2. We
Yeah,
don't
we
have to
can.
we don't have to take one of those guys. We can get another lineman and develop him. We can do the same thing on the defensive line. But if we was to draft another weapon
Yeah.
that wasn't Genty by just trading back, that would be glorious. I don't want to get excited over the fact that we've addressed our needs and then get reckless and go draft Genty at 10, because which is really what we wanted to do all along. That would just totally erase the good work that he did yesterday if he drafted Genty at 10.
So let me add. So the rumors on the street is that Ben Johnson is the one that pounded the table to draft Gibbs, in
Mhm.
spite of having Montgomery, because he loves running backs that do the opposite things. I don't want to draft Genty either, but I personally am not going to be surprised if we call his name at 10 if he slides past the Raiders at 6. I'm not going to be surprised. I'll go on record right now. I'm not going to be surprised if we draft Genty at 10 if he slides to 10. I would prefer to go offensive lineman or defensive lineman at 10. And you
I
can
don't-
talk me into the kid from Penn State too.
I feel like, and you know, I'm not in the room, but it feels like they kind of fell in love with that kid at the combine, meeting with him, or even prior to that. But I think that's what they want to do, and I think what they did yesterday led them say, "Hey, this is the best." And
Yeah, that's
blue chip. I mean, the blue chip guys. I mean, Clarence about Travis Hunter. I mean, he shouldn't be there. I mean,
No.
if he got past, he really has no business getting past 4. And you know, Abdul Carter could be
Should be.
1, probably
Yeah.
should be 3. The Giants should trade up, and the Titans should take him at 3. But I think that, you know, and then Mason Graham should be a top 5, top 6 player.
Yes.
So you know, those guys we shouldn't have any business. I would take any of those guys, obviously, before Genty and any of the players we talked about. But that should never happen. So I think that they really like him. I think there's some flexible offensive linemen at 39 that could play inside and outside, but it's going to take a little time. I think you're fine there, and I think that we can take a run stuffing, you know, interior defensive lineman at 41. So I think those, and then we're back at 72. And if we don't get the tight end from Penn State, there's several guys there that are pretty reasonable. So I feel like that's what they're thinking without being in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, Clarence, what are your thoughts on? I know you don't want to take Genty, but Detroit did. I mean, the rumors are he wanted Jahmyr Gibbs in spite of having Montgomery, and it's set up now. This offensive line is set up that we can almost draft the best player available.
Right.
I mean, we can actually afford to do it now. Last week at this time, we couldn't say that, but now we can say we can draft the best player available.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I can't get on board with taking Genty at
it's just
10.
something. It's just something about me right now that I feel like we should be responsible.
Yeah.
And to me, getting Genty is low hanging fruit. Don't do it. It's the easiest thing to do, and you could convince yourself that you're doing the right thing, but are you really and truly doing? You could still address your needs by trading back. You don't have to get Genty. I mean, Ohio State's got 2 running backs that are badasses.
Duncan, I mean, I
and
think
your kid from North Carolina that you love, Hampton.
They're saying he's
And the
probably a
kid from
top
Iowa.
20 lock at this point. You know, they
And
say,
the
hey,
kid from Iowa.
if we can't get Genty at 10, then we take Hampton at 10. That just feels way high to me. I mean, if we want to trade back into the tail end of the first round and he's there, then maybe. But
Todd, have you ever seen that guy play?
just highlights, just
I'm
not
telling
games. I
you,
know you've watched him.
that
every
dude.
week.
That dude is a beast.
So
He's
Alex Kennedy,
if Carolina had a better football team, that dude he'd have been in New York for the Heisman. I mean, he is that good.
There's right now there's this running back resurgence. A lot of it is because of what the Lions were able to do, and
Saquon Barkley
and Barkley. Really, that's the thing that's
Barkley is really.
You know, and like Najee got decent money last night from the Chargers, you know, and I didn't want any part of that. But our running back room next year is pretty sad, man. I mean, we have. I don't think there's any chance we get past this 3rd round pick without taking a running back. Now, whether that's Judkins or Travion Henderson or who it is, right, or Cam Scatterby, whoever it's going to be. I don't know what his 40 times is going to be. He hasn't run for anybody yet, but you know, I think we're definitely taking one just because. I mean, I don't think there's any chance we bring Swift back, and we don't have anything. But they're running back.
Walking next year.
You know?
He's a free agent.
I mean, there's a chance we take a second one at the end of this draft. You know what I mean? Because you know that's the situation we're going to be in. So we got Roschon after this.
I hate to do it because this has been one of our best shows ever. We almost have 100 people watching right now between Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So this is definitely our highest rated show ever. And I thank everyone for watching, but we got to head into final thoughts because we're running out of time. So Todd, take us away. What are your final thoughts?
It's funny, right? After all these years of going through, really, since I've been with you guys for the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, I feel the word I think I texted you yesterday was competency. This is what a competent NFL team does, and I feel like we've actually broached that. Like this is what a smart team does, and I'm not saying that if we take the running back in the first round, it's not what a smart team does, but it's refreshing, and I'm excited. I'm here for it. So that's.
So again, guys, thank you everyone for following us and following the show tonight. Like I said, we have just between Twitter and Facebook, we have 91. I'm not even looking at YouTube. So this has been a great show tonight. So if you're not following us, please do. We're on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. So guys, my final thoughts. I'm trying. I've been a Chicago Bears fan my entire life. I'm trying not to get excited because if you're a Bears fan for a long time, like I have been, and like we have been on this show, the 3 of us, we have seen this movie before. We have been we've been the off-season Super Bowl champions. The running joke is now 3 years in a row. I mean, we can't forget Ben Johnson is 0-0. I mean, we don't know. I think he's the right guy. I really do. I think he's the right guy. I think we're heading on the right path. It seems like ownership wants to spend money, is willing to spend money. I think we're on the right path. So, Chicago Clarence, what are your final thoughts? You pissed off, not pissed off, need heart medicine? Can I go to a doctor? What are your final thoughts?
Well, last week was the last regular season basketball week for the North Carolina Tar Heels. And I, for one, am glad to see that it's finally over. This season has been a train wreck. Hubert Davis, is all your fault. I don't care nothing about NIL because you are the leader of the basketball program. You are the one who decided to go the route that you did. If you can't raise money at the University of North Carolina to get people to come there and play for you, then what the fuck are you doing there? Because this shouldn't be hard. It's a school that recruits itself. The
Yes.
greatest to ever put on a pair of sneakers played at that school. And you mean to tell me you losing players to people like Alabama? That's a football school. They shouldn't be out recruiting you. But you sitting up there with all of these mid-marginal players. You went out there to Belmont and got the dude that can't throw the ball in the ocean, and you were starting them. And your tallest player is 6'9". You can't win basketball games without being able to rebound. And if you're going to play that way, you damn well better make sure everybody can shoot. But even your best player regressed, which is R.J. Davis. So what I want to try to say is, Hubert Davis, is they decided to give your ass another contract, which I don't know why, because you damn sure ain't earned it. You caught lightning in the bottle your very first season. You went to the national championship game. You had a 15-point lead at halftime, and you gave it up. You lost the basketball game. So all of that's your fault. And you've been living off of that ever since. So what I'm trying to tell you is I am sick and tired of you. I am sick and tired of watching the North Carolina Tar Heels get pushed around. John Shire took over that program the same time that you took over theirs, and he's been out recruiting you. He's been out coaching you. Duke is winning. We're losing, and that's unacceptable. That does not happen in this basketball world. You need to get your shit together. Los Angeles Lakers, how the hell you lose to the Brooklyn Nets? How? I don't care that you had 4 starters out. LeBron popped his groin, whatever, but you lost to the Brooklyn Nets, a team that's only won 23 games and were mired in a 7-game losing streak, and you got beat by them? What the fuck? I mean, my basketball teams have caused me to have to pop Motrin every single week because they do shit that pisses me off. You had a 15-point lead. And it ain't like that you played the night before and you had to travel in the middle of the night to go there and play. You were off. You already in New York. And you lost to the Brooklyn Nets. And then J.J. Redick wants to stand there in his post-game interview and mean mug everybody, talking about how he's pissed off, this, that, and the other. No kidding. Luka Doncic up there talking about he takes responsibility for this, that, and the other. Hell, I know it's your fault. You had 7 damn turnovers against the Brooklyn Nets. They ain't got Scottie Pippen on that team D'ing you up. They ain't got Jaylen Brown D'ing you up. They ain't got Gary Payton on that team D'ing you up. You got D'd up by scrubs. How the hell you lose to the Brooklyn Nets? I mean, I just, for the life of me, Hubert Davis and J.J. Redick, both of y'all are terrible. Y'all had a bad week of basketball. I can tell you that. You need to get their asses in gear and practice. Take the rims off the damn goal. I don't care what you do, but this shit needs to end. Hubert Davis, you got one more game. You talking about you want to make a run in the ACC tournament so you can make the NCAA? Why? So you can get your ass whooped in the first round? Please. You ain't going nowhere. Go ahead. You suck. We suck. Go ahead and put us out of our misery. That's all I had to say, man.
So, unfortunately, I guess I have to put us out of our misery. And thank you, guys. We're almost at 100 people right now. This has definitely been our best show ever with the audience. So thank you so much for joining us, watching us, comments. And with that, until next time, everyone, bear down.
Bear down.